righty, I'm going to do a call to order. Thanks everybody for making it. I know we're missing a few folks, but we'll go ahead and get it started. Start with the roll call.
Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Finance Committee Chairman Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Athletics Committee Chairman Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Mrs. Black? Mr. Connor? Mr. Groen? Mrs. Haddon? Here. Mrs. Jones? Mr. Keene?
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer? Ms. Thomas?
Thank you. So this agenda might look somewhat familiar because a lot of these items on this agenda were things that we were intending to talk about last month, where Gary took all the time on his thing. So we're gonna try to prioritize a couple things. Just before we dive in and we hand it over to Mary Ellen to kick it off, one thing that I just kind of wanted to reiterate and solidify, kind of going into these budgetary conversations as a board. I know we all can agree that last year was far from ideal, and I think we did our best we could to navigate it, and special thanks to Justin and his team in helping that. From this year going forward, there's things that we weren't able to do last year as a result of the gap that we had to close that I know we all would agree that we want to prioritize this year. So, steps for one, and then entry salary increases for our teachers who are doing the frontline work. So my point being is the intent for these earlier conversations is to kind of lay out the groundwork and how we can do that and be more strategic. And I'm not saying we weren't last year, but I think one thing is just having conversations earlier and sooner and having more board level discussions in terms of how we're trending is I think is going to be important in how we achieve that. So that's the intent here, is to get just a ground level understanding for the board, to know how we're trending, how things are moving, any major concerns. Of course, you can go through the agenda and see the things, but high level, I want to ask Mary Ellen to kind of kick it off and just give us kind of how we're trending, how we're looking, any concerns, etc.
Okay, good evening. So we're going to step back to last year for a minute. It takes a little bit to get all the financial results in. We are still doing a final closeout, but we've got most of the entries in, and the auditors are at work working through everything. So we did want to give kind of an overview of where we ended, but we want to start first with what we did kind of mid-year. Again, a conservative approach to where things could end based on what the trends we were seeing then. So we initially were looking at a potential of $12 million use of fund balance to cover the main things, which were the shortage in local tax revenue from what we had built into the budget, and that was related to a lot of it was in lieu of taxes from the prior year and how we built the budget and estimates of what we thought would going forward, along with sales tax was just not trending as strongly as we had expected. And then the other piece, as we know, was healthcare, and looking and trying to make sure we were covering our costs and our insurance fund. And again, those costs were trending up. We feel like we've taken some steps to address that, but it's one of those things that because of open enrollment and the timing on that, you can't do immediate processing on that. So while we were thinking about 12 million, we mentioned the last meeting around 7, when we got our accruals in and final numbers, we're looking at a 5.3 use of fund balance for out of operations. And so we ended up with favorable, especially sales tax came out a lot stronger the last couple months. It was looking like December was low, which seemed odd, but the other months actually, as we got to spring, trended up. And then property tax, we have some accruals at the end, and those produced a positive result on that. And then because of how we had managed our health care, looking at how we were charging out to our grants, we were able to mitigate that cost a little bit. And then we had some other places where we were really addressing operating costs, finding places that we could hold on expenditures. So we ended up in a much better place than we had kind of feared, and we continued to push on that. And then how that impacts fund balance. And so again, our fund balance is looking at really kind of our savings account. We have several components. The main one we want to focus on is the unassigned that's towards the bottom. Last year it was 33 million based on the financial results of that and some accounting adjustments. We'll end up with 24.7 million in fund balance. Our minimum requirement is 3% of our operating budget. So it looks at the FY26 budget and says we have to cover that with 3%. So that's about 16 million. So that would leave us about 8.3 million. That's in addition to what our required number is. So we have to keep that in mind as we're looking forward and we make some decisions. It's starting to get closer to our minimum, so you have to be aware of that. So I think that's kind of the big piece of that is knowing that that is where we can pull when if revenues and expenses don't align, and we sometimes during the year we need to have a chiller's coming out. Now right now, fortunately, we have the bond funds to help backstop that, but that's where we would pull from if we had an unexpected need that we would need to pull from.
So roughly 16 million state law requirement, right? So we can never go
Right.
below that.
Right.
So we got 8 million of, if ever need be.
Right.
What number do you feel like makes you not lose sleep at night, Mary Ellen?
I mean, I would like it to be 6%, so kind of double the 16 would be, give us a little more cushion in there
Yeah.
for unexpected things that come up.
And when you modeled out the budget going into this year, were there any projections on like how to get what would be a contributing factor to increase that? Like how do you positively impact that apart from coming in better at the year?
Right. Yes, I mean, some of it is, the revenue is a big driver, and if that aligns with what we expect, then we balance that. I think we're always watching expenditures and trying to, look for places that we can hold throughout the year. I think it is just trying to think, I mean, we build a balanced budget, but that basically shouldn't take or add to the fund balance, and so thinking, forward, how do we put some, room in the budget for some things? I don't think this year's budget has it, but I don't think we'll dip. There may be some things at the end of the year, that we look at with the expenditures, but hopefully, sales tax is trending positive this year, so hopefully that'll give us a little bit of coverage.
Yeah, and thank you, Mary Ellen. Felicia, you have a question?
Just a quick question. It might be staring at me, but 3% of our operating budget. What is our operating budget? Is that
About 570 million,
Okay.
rough number.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't see the figures.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about enrollment and where the enrollment is trending. So what you see on this slide right here is the enrollment from 17-18 through today. What we're really are talking about is that 20th day, so that difference in the column 3. So what you see first there is that we had 538 fewer students that came in from who were here at the end of the year or 20th day last year. So a little bit of a decrease there. But we also, our projection was slightly higher than we expected. And so the actual number of kids, the actual difference is that 853 below our projection, so about 2%. And so how that translates, you guys remember that the model, it's enrollment driven, it's all ratios driven. So with that many fewer students that are here, that we are actually staffed with 32 more teachers than the students in our seats based on our ratios.
Where were the majority of those concentrated at?
It's all across the board. The top 5, I could pull up the staffing model. There were 5 schools. Let me get my hand on the model.
While she's doing that, the biggest one, so out of that 530, we saw about 200 fewer students at Howard than we projected. And so that was the largest, and then from there, spread out over 7. I would point back, and I think the next slide will kind of get into it. We have a plan to address this, and we talked at the beginning of the year at that 20th day about trying not to make movements, but trying to capture as things come open. So we have a plan to address it. But what this shows you is you can expect, and I'll point back to a big number in 22-23, that first time that we went over 45,000. The way the projections work is that big number is going to roll off, so the projection's going to get even closer. Even though it was really close, and we're 2% of what we should have been, it'll get closer to that 1%. which means next year the staffing model is going to respond to it because it'll be closer to the actual number.
So when you look at 853 students, roughly what does that equate to from like
Budget standpoint?
well, no, more so, yeah, I mean, I guess, but head count perspective.
Yeah, it's the 32
Oh, is that a thing? I'm
teachers.
sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we are overstaffed in the model by 32 teachers right this second.
But you're saying, Dr. Robertson, that you think naturally going into next year that's going to right-size itself because you'll see
I think
enrollment?
it's going to get even lower. So I think that while we're 32 overstaffed right now, if we just rolled that every position forward, we'd probably be 50 overstaffed, right? And so the model next year is going to constrict to where, you know, Howard, 200 less students now, you know, that 7 teachers that they're over, I think it was 7, is, so you're going to be seeing 7 teachers come off of that,
Yeah.
right? And so we've got to do some work with schools to, number one, educate, to remind people our ratios aren't changing. The ratios stay the same, so you'll hear a lot of talk about class size. Class sizes stay the same, but it's driven by the students. So if we lose 500 students, you're going to naturally see that we're going to need less staff.
Mhm. Yep, thank you.
Why do you think we lost 200 at Howell?
Someone asked me this, may have been this morning. Due to the 20th day, right? So if you remember the conversations that we've had with Howard over the past years, is you used to hear things like, you know, we had on September 1st, 50 kids that registered. I don't think we're seeing as many kids come after the start of the school year, which means the number they started at remained relatively the same. But you also have a zone that is saturated in terms of housing, so you can't get many more kids in there. Like, there's not room to build more housing. The housing that there is saturated. And I kept saying this, people didn't want to listen to me, but I'm not going to say it. But remember 3 years ago when we were talking about Howard's overpopulated, we've got to add on to Howard, we need to do something at Howard. We kept being like, we need to slow down and see what happens to this. And I think you're just seeing it right size naturally.
And what were the top 5?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so it's the 4 highest schools that would be losing staff, they're all high schools. So Brainerd, East Ridge, Soddy Daisy, and Howard. Those schools are either 3 to 7 FTEs over. Those are the ones that are most overstaffed.
Why do you think Soddy Daisy, the demographics are different? Do you know why they're losing students? Do you have any reason?
School board member up there around there.
Yeah, Steve, what's happening?
So remember that it's projections, and so in some places, the model responds to maybe a jump 4 years ago. And if that 9th grade class we're projecting it to be higher than it actually is, you create some of that. And again, we're within 2%, so it's not.
So it's still not a large number. I was just curious.
It's not a large number, but what I think is important for the board to see, though, is that the model, although it reacts the same, it impacts some schools more than it does others, right? Because even if we stayed the exact same in enrollment, we might have one school that's down 30 from projections, right? The ratios stay the same, but the model is going to react to enrollment numbers.
We also see it in the high schools because, of course, they're the biggest schools, right? And so there's a swing that you can see. You can see a lot more. They can lose more. They have more teachers they can lose. Here on the 20th day, just so when we realized that we were overstaffed by 32, we came together and have set a goal to try to capture 25 resignations throughout the year from schools that are overstaffed currently by more than one teacher. Because in the model right now, we have a +1, -1 kind of band. Currently, we've captured 4 positions of those 25 to date. 3 of those 4 were vacancies that once we got to the 20th day, we just closed. And then one of them was a resignation that happened just before fall break.
All right, I'm going to walk you through just some of our staffing updates. The first slide you see here is just showing our current vacancies when you think about our certified staff and our school base. But I want to highlight that, last couple of years we've been in a situation where we've opened school first day pretty much fully staffed when you think about our classroom teachers. You can see on, I guess practically speaking, when you do all the numbers, it was about 99.3% of our teacher positions was filled by 8-6. So that's just a highlight here. We've talked about special ed. That's a concern of ours as well. We're down now to 12 vacancies, but that's just our current staffing there. The next slide here is
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you have, are these positions that are open that people have to apply for?
That is correct, and they're open for various reasons, right? I think there's very few that's been open since day one, but through attrition or through unfortunate resignation. But these are jobs that's posted. We're trying to attract, and some of, I would say, one or two may be because of our special assignment. You remember for moving, I'm going to talk about this just in a moment, but we hired 4 of our internal teachers to become special ed teachers. So, but we're backfilling those positions as well. So that's attributing some of our numbers as well.
I guess I need to just ask my specific question. So you have one social worker position available. So if a social worker who's moving to a SUI coach position, can they move back into a social worker position?
Next year, perhaps. It's an internal transfer. So what happens, we have policies and procedures in place where we try to stabilize the staff. So all of our staff members are able to transfer once every year. And so we really try to maintain, once you're in a chair for the school year, for lateral moves, both of those positions are 201 day or 201 calendar count. So we would say no, unless Dr. Robertson, told me something different. But that's really just trying to be consistent, stabilizing the schools. It's one, if I allow one, then you're going to allow another, and you end up just, playing dominoes. And so, but clearly, this is a position that will be provisional when we fill, and so therefore, our staff members that's full-time will have an opportunity to, if there was moving to a student support coach role, to apply for the social worker role for FY27.
Can I put a pin real quick in this? And it goes back to Mr. Doherty's question at the beginning about fund balance. So there's a blessing and a curse here, right? Our HR team's doing a really good job of filling positions, but when you're 99.3% staffed, that means at the end of the year, we're almost using all of that salary budget, where in the past, if we had been, there were some years that we were 94% staffed. Well, that means that 6% of that salary budget is sitting there, and at the end of the year, a lot of that would roll into fund balance, right? So the blessing is we want to be as staffed as we can. The curse is, it's harder to put money back into fund balance.
But by the same train of thought you had previously, it follows enrollments.
Yeah.
If enrollment stays steady, then you've got the right people and you're at a point of equilibrium.
This is a good, I wouldn't trade it, but I'm just pointing out that the biggest bucket of money in, GP is people, and when you're filling positions, that means less at the end of the year is left to go into fund balance.
Going along with that, I want to just highlight our retention rates. I know that there's always warnings about resignations and retirees. You can see that we are continually improved since school year 21-22, specifically from 23-24 to 24-25. You can see that we decreased by 5.8%, which is incredible. I looked at the current numbers now. We are well behind or ahead in a good way compared to even last year when I think about our resignations for August and September. You might ask why. I think there's really 5 key points or key strategies we've really tried to implement from the talent office. One is that we've just enhanced our recruitment practices, meaning we're hiring early. We've got a stronger candidate pool, and so therefore we're able to grab teachers early. Matter of fact, we start hiring in a couple of weeks in November, and I'll talk more about that down the road. But again, trying to get ahead of the game while all the applicants are there. Our second is this board's been great to continue to recognize and fund our new teacher induction program, right? And that's going to our mentoring for all of our first through third. They have mentors. We're over 90% retention rate for our first year teachers. Then, of course, our leadership development programs, and again, targeted professional learning is important. We've also, the last couple of years, been able to invest in just the human resources staff. We're able to respond quickly to schools. When I first got this job, we had really 2 hires, right? When you're thinking about hiring 400 people, you've got 2 people doing that. We now have a team that's supporting all of our learning communities. So we have a KPI where if we're going to make an offer within 48 hours, we're going to make sure that our applicants are not going to go to another district. So all of that contributes to, one, filling the seat, but also just being responsive to the needs of the schools. The other is the working conditions, right? What we recognize is, even from the district standpoint, from our staffing model, our school staffing model, we spend a lot of time talking about teacher-student ratio, but with all the strategic ways that principals can utilize their funds, our adult-to-student ratio is low. And so, again, when you have a team working to provide great service to the schools, that's going to maintain the staff, right? That's going to keep the team together. And then finally, it's just our significant investment we've made, and we'll talk more about it in a few slides, to our hard-to-staff positions, right, where we're trying to incentivize our teachers to stay at the Promise and Hope schools, but also our math and science. As you're aware, we added that to making sure that we can fill our positions at Dawn School as well. So I think all of those contribute to maintaining, going the right way when you think about our attrition. Yes, ma'am.
All of this is great, about teacher retention, but my question is, and I guess because it affects my district quite a bit, I know teachers are being retained, but they are moving inside of the system. So they may leave one school, you may have, just hypothetically, 20 teachers that leave this school. They're being retained because they're still with Hamilton County school system, but they're leaving that school. So it creates no stability. I'm interested, if you don't mind, in that number, especially for my own district, because I see that a lot. They just move.
Yes, ma'am. And if you give me, I'm going to note that because I figure someone's going to ask that, because I want to see it as well to figure out what's our return on investment on our hard staff. I've yet to run those numbers because we use our LOEs first, because we really want to make sure those are effective teachers. And so this year will be the first year that we've had 3 years of consistency, so we can see if that's really working. Because what I would say, with just all the programs, I think you're going to see a higher retention rate at those schools, specifically our Hope and Promise schools, because of the investment we've made. But I should have those numbers soon we get our LOE, so I can run that and have a comparison and share with you.
Felicia, you had a question?
Okay, LOE.
A level of effectiveness.
Level of effectiveness. And also, I guess we're considering differentiated pay or something for some of the hard-to-staff schools or incentives.
Yes, ma'am. So they're connected, right? And so bottom line is we want to invest in our teachers, but we expect results. And so, and it's all tied in with our new teacher induction of recruitment and also retention. After you get past the recruitment phase, then it's the retention. So we expect you to hold a 3, 4, and 5 with excellent attendance.
Gary, you had a question?
Yeah. I know the hard-to-staff funds are there. Are we still also providing extra pay for science and math, or is that no longer?
Yes, sir, and that's district-wide for math, science, and then, of course, you're going to steal my thunder a little bit, but one of our strategies for going for FY27, we want to widen that a bit, and that's going to include special ed, and I'll talk about that just in a moment.
I have another question.
Go ahead, please.
So we're wanting to, after we recruit or get the LOE teachers in, we're wanting to keep them there for 3 to 4 years. Is there like a contract or something they agree to when they go to the hard-to-staff schools?
Yeah, you know, we know it really takes, I always say it takes 2 things to have great schools, right? You have great leaders and great teachers. And so part of the hard-to-staff, the reason we have those funds is to maintain stability. We recognize that teaching at one elementary is a little different than another, right? We want excellent teachers at all of our schools. And so part of that is to maintain the stability, right? And I would say that when we think about provisional status, and one of the reasons that we're able to be at 99% is there's not a lot of movement. I mean, you know, some of our traditionally hard to staff, the teachers are staying because they feel like we recognize that they're working extremely hard. We're trying to compensate as much as we can. I just don't have the numbers to give you yet, but I really want to make sure that I'm comparing apples with apples and making sure that we are comparing our LOEs with LOEs. So, but it is designed not only to recognize the work, but also to maintain the continuity for the staff at the school. So. Part of our recruitment strategy as well going forward, I want to highlight that our Brazen platform, I'm not sure if you know about that, but it really is, we still do our in-person recruitment, but we leverage our Brazen virtual platform. This allows us to use technology. We're able to engage with over 265 candidates, where principals are online talking to candidates, trying to recruit them for their schools. And typically when we host one of these events, we always have a 60+ participation rate, so they're in our pipeline, so we can continue to bring them to Hamilton County. The other is our Grow Your Own programming, and as well as our Career Tech Education CTE. You probably heard that the EPP pathway, we started 2 years, we're in our second cohort. By investing in Grow Your Own as well as our EPP, we're touching over 200 candidates, right? So they're in the pipeline, they're working towards their licensure with various disciplines, and so that's something we want to continue to encourage, right? We want to make sure we're always using recruiting from the colleges, but we're thinking about recruiting for second career as well. And last, you've well aware of our partnership with UTK, where we're offered fully funded spots for the add-on XED licensure programming. We're able to fill 4 of those critical needs. That's going to be our IDS classroom, ME, DCC. Matter of fact, we just hired another today, and so there's a teacher, a PE teacher at a school that's willing to work towards that certification. So we'll make sure they are well suited at one of our schools in North River. Talking more about exceptional ed, just a few more slides here. Of course, it's our greatest challenge, right? We recognize that when it comes to filling our special ed positions, specifically what I call the Cadillac license, the 461. Quite frankly, there's just not enough out there, right? And so we've got to be really creative to lure folks in from other districts, but also maintain. And so that's one reason that we want to, recommendation is deferring expertise. You know, I share with you our compensation study that right now, currently, when you think about a school psychologist, right, and we are doing a lot of outsourcing with school psychologists, just trying to meet the needs of our IEPs. But the study shows that, right, you know, we're paying 10% less midpoint the salary, so we need to adjust that. Part of that could be utilize a new salary schedule. I know Dr. Robertson talked about that later. Also, I want to make sure.
So you're in need of school psychologists? I'm sorry.
Say again, ma'am.
You are in need of school
Yes,
psychologists?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. It's, you know, it's really difficult. I will say, I've looked at the numbers this past week. UTC actually have a larger number this year. And so my hope is if we can correct our salary, and you know what I mean by that is a school psychologist is going to have a master's. Right now, we pay just barely over $50,000 for a master's, 0 experience. And we know that the school psychologist can go make 75 grand, you know, right after that. So we've got to adjust.
They have to come in on that as well?
Yes, ma'am. Currently in our current structure, that's something that we want to.
How long's it been at that pay range?
Say again?
How long's it been at that pay range?
The only reason it's there because we increased the beginning salary for teachers, 2 years ago.
So they come on the teacher's salary.
And so that's, yeah, and so we're spending extra money just to be very specific or transparent because we have to outsource, right? We've got to meet the needs of our kids. We have virtual school psychologists, but that's really costing us more. And so I'm hopeful if we can get to a place where we can, you know, supply and demand, right? We've got to be more competitive when it comes to salary, specifically our SLPs, speech language pathologists, as well as our school psychologists.
You've got one open position for a school psychologist today on that previous slide?
Yeah, and what we do with that, it's a pool posting. And so when I say one, because I can post 5 or 6, but we end up trying to stay within budget where the salary I would have for 5, I'm using for the resourcing, right? And so having one post is really no different than having 5. So that's just what we do for those specialty.
What is the what's the average tenure look like for our exceptional ed staff? Maybe more specifically with the psychologists. Like, I mean, obviously it's a lower salary than they could probably get in the open market.
I don't have that exact number. I will say it's been traditionally for, let's just take school psychologists, pretty high, right? That's why we've been able to get to a place we're at now to keep providing services. But what's happened is it's like the last 2 years we've been able to offer sign-in bonuses for new people, right? And so we've actually to the tune of $8,000 to come in and work for Hamilton County. But what we've recognized is we're taking care of our beginning psychologists, but what about our veterans, right? And
right.
So we do have a strategy that I'm going to present to the board next month that I want to correct that, right? Really going back to Mr. King was we want to make sure that our school psychology is part of our heart of staff, right? And so they can get not only get a recruitment, but also get a retention so they can be eligible for something, just recognizing that we need them and there's an appreciation. So it stopped you're only taking care of the new people, right? So to maintain those staff members. the other thing we're gonna add in is an employee referral program. I think the best recruiters are teachers. They have colleagues, right? And so I've asked our talent acquisition director to come up with a strategy where if Ben Daugherty knows a school of psychology who recruits from Hamilton County, so I'm gonna support that. We're gonna hire him and then find a way to subsidize Ben. I don't have the numbers there, but.
I know someone too, you gonna have my person.
So, yeah. Hey, we'll.
She's literally the doctor. But okay.
Yeah, let's talk, yes, ma'am. I know,
She probably won't leave her job, I was just talking.
but we do that, though. I think we've tried to do some of those things. It's really, even school psychology, especially way up with math. I mean, honestly, it's hard for, it's not right for us to call other teachers, but you can clearly call your colleagues and tell them about Hamilton County Schools and how great it is to work. And
Expanding your network.
100%. The last here is the incentivize our existing certified employees. I'm going to continue to recruit our own teachers, and so if a teacher is willing to step outside their regular classroom at no cost to them, we'll make sure they go through the program to support them, to add that 461 license to special ed. If we do this right, not only we're going to pay for that, but also if we do the hard to staff, there'll be an incentive going for them to stay in those classrooms as well.
Felicia, you had a question?
Yeah, so for those positions, is it hard to staff for the ones who are like in direct service going out, or are we trying to just focus on those contained classes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So this slide here shows, did some quick calculations. What I like to do is, we value all of our accessible ed teachers, and we have a lot of going to be inclusion in those 461s. A 461 is the Cadillac license, so they can be in the regular classroom, direct instruction, or they can be in our specialized programs. But we really want to focus on our specialized programs. Our IDS, our COM, our DCC, our behavior classroom, our ME. And so here's what I would love to do going forward. Out of those 75 teachers, those special programs, is a recruitment for $4,000, right? As long as they're meeting their LOEs and the attendance, and then also a retention of $6,000. That kind of coincides what we've done this year, where we've asked, we did the $10,000 for teachers that wanted to step outside the special assignment bonus we utilize. This is ongoing, so this would not only give all of our staff members the ability to leave one school to go teach in a specialized classroom, but we want to make sure we provide great teachers for all of our programs. So this is something we'd like to add into our hard staff, which is at a cost. It's going to be around $400,000 with benefits. So.
Is this just every year or continuous? Will they get that retention $6,000 every year, but not the recruitment?
That one or the other, right? And so we always talk about the recruitment is we do a great job and a great investment on our new teachers, right? Year 1, 2, and 3. As long as they're 1, 2, and 3, they're meeting expectations through Project Coach, they're doing the things we've asked them to do, we safeguard that recruitment bonus. But after year 3, we definitely say, okay, your training wheels are off, we expect you to be a 3, 4, or 5, so to maintain your bonus or your stipend, you'll move from the 4,000 to the 6,000, becomes a retention, but now your score, it matters, right? So.
What about the current special ed teachers to retain them? Will they be eligible for the 6,000?
Yes, ma'am. If they're going to be inside of a special classroom,
Okay.
And again, direct instruction, it's the same as, we're needed, but it's a little bit more of a challenge, right? And so, but by making it district-wide, we're opening it up to all of our staff members, right? Because if there's only one program class at a school and you really got the heart to want to be there, you can go down the street, apply for another position, whether you'll be eligible for the recruitment retention.
Is the 461 a federal requirement that we have to have that in those classrooms?
It's just for our comprehensive programming, and that's just the degree through their education, through their programming. It's the top of the line, right? And so when you move from direct instructional inclusion to an ME classroom or COM, your skill set is needed. It's different training. So.
But if you're asking, it's required by law, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it state law, federal law?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Justin, I remember like a month and a half ago where your team was looking for, was that the license that we
Yes.
paid? And didn't you guys have a lot of interest from that?
Yes,
like
sir, we did.
surprisingly amount?
Yeah, and we filled 4, almost were completely full.
Yeah, we hired one today as well.
Oh, okay, so we got 5. What this is saying, and just to be explicit, is we've got to get ahead of this so that we're not waiting till the school year starts to add that bonus. We're going to ask in November that this gets pre-approved for next year's budget, because Dr. Brown and his team will start recruiting in January, and this will allow existing teachers, again, as the example of if I'm at school A as an inclusion teacher, but I have a 461 and I see a $6,000 retention bonus, we want to give them every opportunity to say, well, I'm willing to go to school B and serve as a comm teacher or a DCC teacher and get this retention bonus.
Okay. Felicia, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question as far as, because they won't have that certification yet, but they'll be working toward it. And I'm just wondering what the course load is
When you
for
say they,
them
like
through-
the
or
5
through
teachers we're talking about?
UT, you know.
Yes, ma'am. So that's only available to certified teachers, right? So
Yeah,
one is they
certified,
already
right.
have a strong pedagogy, right?
Right.
And so, and Michelle Ergel, the director of special ed, she's done a great job even this week of really onboarding the new staff, right? Really working
Okay.
with the team from central office to the school to make sure that we're just not throwing them in there, right? And so
Right.
it's really a strategic plan, and it is a little extra work. And just the way I talk to the staff is that, you know, the $10,000 wasn't meant for a salary, but we recognize that you're going to have to spend a little more time preparing for the students. But the coursework itself is self-paced, and they have 18 months to work through that.
Okay, everything to
Yes, ma'am.
myself. Okay, thank you.
Gary, you had a question?
Yeah, so you said in November you're going to ask about this. Will it be comprehensive? Will it be the ask for number of expected science, number of expected math, or is it just going to be the exceptional ed?
No, it'll be our complete hard to staff and
Okay.
hard to fill
All right,
position.
so
It's
we
part
will
of
get-
it. You always hear differentiated compensation, but that's the big package, right? This is just a piece of the hard to staff, and I might get the number wrong, but I believe it's about $6 million that we spend on that. So
But that includes like your science and math
Correct.
teachers that you mentioned earlier, right? But
Anything else?
we're asking, basically, essentially what we're gonna be asking is to add this to
To
that diff comp, so that we go into, you know, the 26-27 school year fully staffed in our IDS classrooms and our DCC classrooms.
that's right. And so let me underscore one more time so you know. So what's important for me is like currently our 461 teachers. Other districts are trying to steal our teachers. And so I want to be able to, in November, that this board, we're committed to, hey, stay with us. We want to retain you. And so we don't lose those 461s because guess what? They're a 461. They're already teaching in our, you know, special programs. They now know that for those veteran teachers, they're going to get a $6,000 bonus. So we got to advertise that not only to attract, but also to retain. So that's even, but we've got to be able to sell that with your blessings. Thank you.
I don't know if it's accurate, but a friend of a friend, that's used to be in our system, but left to Atlanta, got $22,000 toward this certification for this exit. And
I don't doubt it.
I was just curious, of course, Atlanta's got a lot higher sales and that. I was just curious where we are with our 10,000 in relation to not just Tennessee schools, but the Georgia schools.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this research I've done, bonuses, stipends, they're all over the place. But what I will say about our district is we have other ways that our veteran teachers can earn additional dollars because of the leadership development we have, right? The different stipends, the way they can go and be mentors, lead mentors. So we have a significant number of things that our great teachers are always participating in that can add. Now, if you want to find a way for me to, you know, give a $20,000 stipend or bonus, you know, that I'll take it.
I was just bringing that one out because that's what I'd heard, and it made me think, wow, you know, and Atlanta's not close, but it's not that far. I mean, it's, you know.
Their
So-
budget, though, is significantly
Right,
different. I
that's-
mean,
and,
I saw a
So it
report.
made me wonder, what about the North Georgia schools? What about the Ringgold and the Heritage and those that probably are also getting similar state money that Atlanta gets, but not necessarily anywhere near the property tax or the sales tax? But, so it started making me think.
we're regionally competitive is what I would say, but Atlanta is a different ballgame. I saw a report the other day that they're close to their average teacher salary is almost $100,000 now.
I think that's why.
So that
Well,
makes sense.
in the Atlanta Metro, it's smaller than us in
Yeah,
terms of the number of students.
It's right about the same, but I mean, I
But
think
their
their
budget
budget is
is-
about 1.8 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense then, almost
Yeah.
double for that and almost double for teacher salaries. Okay.
With about the same number of students.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll add to that as well is, think about region, like, we're the only district around that really invests in our new teachers, right? And I mean, that's a major investment when we think about our retention rates and, because quite frankly, we want to honor those teachers, right? I mean, those first three, we want to keep them there. And so there's lots of ways we invest, right? In a sense of, all of our other districts I know of, when they call me, like, all of our first year teachers are a one-to-one mentor, right? And that mentor for a new teacher coach is really specifically not for the teaching and learning, but just how do you set your classroom up? How do you have a work-life balance? I mean, so that's so important to, so in my mind, that's a working conditions, and that's what attracts folks to want to work for Hamilton County as well. So you have the dollar amount, but you have all the other things that matter as well, so.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Close this up, and this actually kind of closes our part, going back to what Mr. already said at the beginning, is last budget was difficult, but that difficult work has put us in a better position right now. We're at a place where, we could roll over the current budget to next year and make really minimal adjustments, but we know there are priorities. As Mr. Doherty said at the beginning, I would agree with it 100%, as we should have a priority around increased wages, looking at salary schedule. I know that we've got some priorities around thinking about athletics. Obviously, we just mentioned something that would add $400,000 to the budget. So I want to leave you, before we talk about just timelines, as we go into this budget, one of the first steps that we should be thinking about is what are the priorities of the board, right? And we should know much earlier than last year what we're trying to get at and get on the same page, so that then we can work towards it, right? I would put these three up here as our priorities. It's compensation, whatever that looks like. If it's step, new salary schedule, percent increase, but it's our goal is working towards increased wages for our employees. Look at a timeline, and this is not set in stone. This is us just trying to think about that, as we said at the beginning, moving that timeline back a little bit instead of really getting into the meat of it. February, March, April is really trying to get on the same page with individual meetings over the next couple months, so that when we go January, it's some community feedback, but we've got our priorities set so that we can start working through that budget and prepare for presenting to you for approval, but then taking to the county commission. Mr. Chair, turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Justin. And I mean, I know I said in the beginning, but when you look at those 3 bullet points, steps, raises, competitive salaries, I mean, at the end of the day, we are our business is teachers, and that's what makes this whole thing work. And if we're not retaining and recruiting the best talent, then you're going to be in a difficult situation throughout the year with not having the right people and enough people in those positions. So I know, I mean, I can't speak for the whole board, but I'd venture to guess that you'd have unanimous support for ensuring that, and really just looking at it as a cornerstone piece. So like having an idea, and I know Mary Ellen can handle that, how much do we need for the XYZ for those 3 bullet points and what that looks like. And then in my mind, from a budgetary standpoint, you build around that. And how do you bridge the gap and how to make it happen? So that's my focus. Sounds like it's your focus, and I'm glad we're on the same page around that. Well, great stuff. Zach, great job on with the hiring and stuff. I mean, I know that's no easy task, and you got a lot of different opinions, and you gotta mitigate that, and you're doing a great job. So thank you.
Are you asking for all 3 of those?
Now, the way we're thinking about it, I would kind of say it, maybe a little bit different than Mr. Doherty, but is thinking about how do we get to a number, and then the decision is what do we look at in terms of, is it X percent, is it step and X percent, is it moving some to the salary schedule, but really trying to get a big number that then the board has the ability to make some decisions over what that wage increase looks like.
On that note, last question for me at least. Zach, the compensation study, I know we had 3 phases. First phase was $5 million, if I remember correctly. As you look going into the next year, are you trying to build that into
And
planning?
with that, yes, sir, with Mary Ellen, part of that whole compensation scale is trying to account for that $5 million, right? And that $5 million right now, if we didn't do anything, and again, the figures are a little old now because this is last year. It would just be moving everybody to the new scale, but the folks that's not on the scale, we need to get them on the scale, right? But I think what Dr. Robertson is stating is that we figure out how much money we have, and can we do a little bit of everything, right? Getting people on the right scale, but also their percentage, we just don't know yet. But yes, that would be my preference, is we find a way to, when it's all said and done, take care of our employees by giving them a raise, but find a way to be competitive going forward, is to be on a new scale. And again, I underscore, changing scale will put us in a better place even for trying to hire school psychologists. Right now, they're on the wrong scale, and we need to move that. And there's, not to keep beating a dead horse, but there's a new data I received earlier that I believe school psychologists now moving towards, they've got to have a minimum degree of an EDS, educational specialist. So that again is, they're going to come in more specialized, so we've got to be able to recognize that when it comes to salaries.
I'm sorry, who needs an EDS?
I don't know when it's going into effect, but what I'm seeing is right now they have the
Who's
school,
they?
school
The school
psychologist.
psychologist,
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify.
And the reason I say that is just right now, our current schedule shows that masters and EDS is all lumped together, and not all of our positions require, well, matter of fact, none of our positions require an educational specialist, but it seems like we're going to have one that will require. And it's kind of like our social workers require a master's degree, right? So.
And can you clarify that $5 million for me again, the $5 million?
That $5 million was honestly taking our employees, moving to all
That's what it
employees.
takes
Yes,
to
ma'am.
meet
That was
the
an estimate.
compensation study expectations, is the amount, just confirming, clarifying, thanks.
All right. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Slater. And Jackie, do you have a question?
I do have.
Go ahead.
More of a concern. I don't know I know you may have presented a compensation study or all that, but my concern is when the salaries came out, I had deep concerns about teachers making more money than the people that manage them. So I don't know if the compensation has it where that's a total different salary scale, or because if they're on the same, if the area superintendents and the principals and the teachers are on the same, coaches on the same scale, there doesn't make sense for a coach to make more than their principal, for the principal to make more than their area superintendent. For me, it doesn't make sense. And so I don't know what needs to happen, but in my opinion, it needs to change because it's really not fair. I don't want to manage somebody to make more money than me and I'm doing more of the work on a broader scale from a different perspective, of course.
Yes,
But I didn't know if you all were looking at that or if that's something when you bring it that you could possibly propose, because being on the same scale is not at an equal level, in my opinion,
Yes,
when
ma'am.
I looked at the salaries, because I wanted to know, why does this person make more than this person? So,
Well, that's a great answer, and I would say that the scale, the compensation, it addresses that because there would be 3 scales, right? There would be a general employee scale, there would be an administrative scale, as well as a, what's the other one?
Executive
No, teacher schedule. Right now, we have everything on a teacher schedule. And so I only have so much power in the sense of recognizing salaries because I'm so locked in. So what we need to do is, what the compensation study has showed us, we need to have 3 schedules. Again, general employee schedule, a teacher schedule, and then we have an administrator schedule. And that allows us flexibility. And just since you brought it up, it says for my seat, you think about our schools. Our schools are so different. And when it comes to a point where I need to recruit for a new principal at school A, or recruiting for a principal at school A is different from school B. But right now, our current structure is they make the same. Well, it's not the same, right? And so we need to put ourselves in a position, we want the best person doing the best job at the right school. So the scale will be able to address those issues, specifically what you're talking about.
Ms. Thomas, the structure of the scale, and Mr. Keene may remember this, it actually goes back to the merger. We've made some tweaks like here and there to different parts of it, but the structure itself has not been adjusted, since the merger, and it does create some issues like you're talking about. And moving to a new scale, what we're saying we should be doing will address a lot of that.
Darius, you had a question, sir?
I might have misunderstood you on something, Zach. So I was always under the impression that given the same number of years, an administrator in a middle school will make more than an administrator in an elementary school. And an administrator in a high school, even if it's the smallest high school, will make more than an administrator in a middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that's-
You had made a comment that they would all be making the same, but we have a breakdown of hierarchy in the levels of schools and the population of the schools.
Yeah, you're probably recalling the index is different, right? We do recognize the way we have an index for elementary, middle school, and high. But it's so, I think at the end of the day, it's so contingent on years of experience. It's so heavy. And so, and quite frankly, we can argue about how many years of experience you need to have in order to do a great job. A 7-year veteran is going to make a lot less than a 20-year veteran and doing the same job. And again, that's kind of where we're at, right? But that's just an example. And some of it is because of, she was mentioning teachers-wise, we want to make sure, there is a balancing act where I want to make sure that our staff stay where they think they can do their best work. So there is this sense that I'm okay paying teachers, great, because I want teachers to be with the kids. But there is that, again, you got to have great leaders and great teachers. But that's why we have the hope and promise, because we do try to incentivize our teachers to make more if they're working at some of our more schools that's got additional challenges, whatnot. But we've got to look at the big picture, all of our staff members, and because again, it takes both to be successful.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Felice?
Yeah, just a quick comment as far as what I've noticed as far as administrators and the different levels of schools, is I think as you get to the higher level schools, there's a lot more responsibility for the principals and all the extracurriculars, all the time you have to be on the building, and it just, so, I think that justifies the difference in pay.
All right, I'm going to hand it over to D1, school representative, Mr. Slater.
Thank you. First of all, let me give a little background on what I've done here. When Joe asked me to do this as a new athletic committee chairperson, I wanted to get a lot of input from other folks. So I put together, I guess what I would call a advisory committee, and it included ADs, coaches, principals from middle schools, small middle schools, large middle schools, same thing with high school. So
People that'll be getting around.
no. So we've come up, we've had 3 meetings, and we've come up with a vision statement and mission statement. I guess I'll go ahead and read this because everybody doesn't have a copy. Vision statement: every student should have the opportunity to prepare mentally and physically for any situation they may face as adults, to hone self-discipline and character necessary to succeed in all aspects of life, and to pursue excellence, integrity, and respect that comes from honest competition through athletics. The mission statement is the Hamilton County Board of Education is committed to providing every student in Hamilton County schools with the opportunity to participate in high-quality interscholastic athletics. And to that end, we will prioritize investment in the following: facilities, Every arena, stadium, gymnasium, or training room in Hamilton County should be a source of pride for its student athletes, the school, and the community. And we will work with community leaders, alumni, and donors to establish a standard of excellence across the entire county. Coaches. Coaches are vital to the student athletes as leaders, mentors, and role models. They not only train the players, but they mold tomorrow's leaders. Accordingly, we believe it is vitally important to recruit and retain excellent coaches and compensate them appropriately. Staffing. Proper staffing is essential to ensure correct techniques and the safety measures in every athletic contest. And this is completed by proper training, experience, leadership abilities, and the correct number of coaches that are needed for every sport. What I would like to do is to present this to the board and let it be as part of our policy. The second thing that we agreed on is to change the title of athletics coordinator to director of athletics. And this would put that position in a full director status. And that would increase the compensation as such. That compensation is probably less than $10,000 a year, so it's not that big a deal. But he would have full director status.
Can I ask a question for you?
Sure.
Rick, or you want me to-
No, go ahead.
So what do we have now? Do we not have a director of athletics, or you wanting everybody to, what do we have now?
We have an athletics coordinator, which is Tim James.
The gentleman that come up here all the time?
Mhm.
Okay, that's his title. Okay, so it's just one person?
What? Yeah.
Just one
Well,
person.
yeah, we'll get into that in a second too.
All right.
But this would give him full director status. Increase athletics budget to a minimum of 1% of the total district budget. The current budget is 0.67 of 1%. I have been in meetings and asked a bunch of people, what do they think the athletic percentage is of our budget? And they have guessed everywhere from 10% to 20%. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. And when I tell them it's 0.67 of 1%, they're absolutely flabbergasted. They don't believe me, but I say, hey, check it out. But this would give immediate.
Steve,
Go ahead.
What does that 0.67 of 1%, help me remember?
That's 2/3, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Help me remember what that's paid for.
Coaches supplements.
Okay.
There are a few things like some transportation provided to inner city schools that don't have the transportation to get to ball games and stuff. That some of that very minor things like field sand for a softball field, things like that.
Vast majority of it is in coaching stipends.
Yeah, the vast majority is.
I think other things, athletic trainers for games.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
The
Catastrophic-
Erlanger
That's true.
contract.
Catastrophic
That's,
insurance.
Erlanger provides those, and we pay for those trainers.
There was a time when they gave that to us. You remember that?
There was a time, it's probably 2018, where it was school by school, right? And some were being donated and some were, schools were paying for. Obviously, that created some liability issues, and so we put out an RFP, if you'll remember, and Erlanger won it, and they provide a trainer for every school.
And that's essential. It really is.
Oh, yeah, no question.
What does the trainer do? I'm sorry.
Well, the second game of the year at Soddy Daisy, we had a kid get hurt, and brought him to the sideline, put a splint on his
So
ankle.
they're medical staff?
Yes.
That's what you mean with a trainer,
Yes.
they're medical staff? Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to know, just asking.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, they carry an AED on the sidelines, all the things that you would need for any emergency.
Okay.
But the kid I was talking about wouldn't leave the field. They wanted to take him straight to the hospital. He wouldn't go. But, so, he wanted to stay and make sure they won. So, he kind of went against the trainer's advice there, but, the trainer stood right by him the whole time. But if we increase this, it would give immediate raises to underfunded coaches, okay? That would be basically outside coaches that take care of their fields. Baseball, softball, soccer. And that would essentially be the same percentage as a basketball coach. So you got coaches taking care of a field year-round as opposed to, and believe me, I played basketball, and coaches were great, but they don't have to take care of a field all during the summer either. So
What does that mean, they take care of the field? Do they have to do it, or is there another Hamilton County staff that's supposed to do it, but they don't, so
they
do it?
get,
What is that? Yeah. Who's supposed to do it?
I think it's $300. Am I right?
It's school to
Justin?
school, but it's cutting grass. It is
Weed eating, cutting
you know,
grass.
lining fields, things like that. There are opportunities for the lawn service to cut the grass, but the reality is most coaches don't trust and don't want them doing
No,
it.
they want to take care of their own field.
They want to fertilize it, try to make
Yeah.
a good level playing surface for kids, prevent injuries, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A little more focus on it than regular grass.
But this would also help with extra transportation for the inner city schools and provide for minor athletic needs. Like I said, adding dirt to a softball field and things like that are normally needed.
I have a question. Why, since you emphasize inner city schools, why do they need transportation and the other schools don't? Do they have their own personal buses or something, the other schools, and that the inner city schools don't?
The other schools, I can give you Soddy Daisy and Sale Creek, for example. They have a lot of parents that will drive the kids to practice, to games. And sometimes these games are Cleveland.
And, I'm saying, are they in their personal vehicles or are they on the bus?
Most of that is personal vehicles, but the schools can rent a bus. But this would help if we raise
So the
this.
students in I'm just asking these questions, so the students in other schools the team doesn't ride together as a team?
They often do. That when the board made the decision, and I don't know offhand when it was made, it's been in the last 10 years to put aside some money for transportation. It was in recognition, when you look across athletic budgets, there are some schools that have the ability to raise more money. And so booster clubs at some schools are able to pay for a bus, to take the football team, and another bus to take the band, and another bus to take the rest of the football team and the cheerleaders, where it's recognizing that the gates at some schools aren't generating enough money to pay for those buses. So it's in recognition more of that than anything, right?
And middle schools, normally don't have money to rent a bus. And that's where the parents come in. But it would, nationally, district budgets range anywhere from 1% to 3%, unless it's Texas, and those are anywhere from 5 to 10. But, our surrounding areas average is 1.2%, so we lack in that area.
So that 1/3 of 1%, what does that equate to? How much money is that?
Right now, it's about 4.2 million.
Say again?
4.2 million is what we're
4.2
putting
million.
for the coach supplements, the AD. It doesn't include,
Okay,
Tim's
but-
So
salary.
you can add about 2 million is what the going from 0.67 to 1% would add about $2 million to that budget.
And it's only gonna go for compensations for the coaches?
That's not what she just said.
I'm
Now,
asking-
give me two different numbers. That's not what she just said.
Some of it.
So 0.33%. .33 of 1%. You're saying that's about 4 million, you're saying that's 2 million.
No, he's asking to
Actually,
add
I'm saying
2 million.
4.2.
Add 2 million.
He's saying
Yeah.
add 2 million
It would
to
add
it
2 million.
with
1.6
that increase,
1.9 million is what it would be.
right? Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
trying to go from about 4.2 to close to just
To
under 6
yeah.
million.
He's saying add,
Yeah.
I said about 2.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Getting greedy over there.
About,
Well, yeah, I mean, I
about
like
2.
I like that number, 2 million.
Well, I just would like to see what it would go towards, because again, when you talk about compensation, if we're giving them regular compensation on teacher salary, now we're finna give them a whole nother compensation. Where does that leave them when the supervisor manage them? Are they gonna be making more than the principal just to maintain the field that the regular department can maintain?
They won't be making more than the principal.
I'm just saying that would be my concern. What does that look like? Is this 6.0 budget more than a special ed budget? I mean, I'm just saying what my priorities would be. Not necessarily, I know y'all, all teachers to me are mentors, or all of this that you said. I'm not saying they shouldn't possibly get a raise. I'm not suggesting that. But I guess my priorities would be, are we gonna double dip with the compensation that they could possibly get when we talk about the 3 priorities that they listed? Or is that even more? Is that even extra? Because it's extra anyway, right? It's extra, a little extra bonus anyway. And if you're only coaching football, I don't know how it works. Does compensation go year round? Or if you're coaching football, just an example, do you get $2,000? If you coaching basketball, do you get, I know you said they may get more, do you get $2,000 and that's it? Or do you get paid year round? What does that look like for me? I don't understand this.
Yeah, currently it's a percentage, stipend percentage, so I'm not, don't take me as this is actual, but the highest, coach stipend is for a head high school football coach. I think it's at 20%.
20.
So if that person is making $50,000 as a teacher, they get a $10,000 stipend. You know, head basketball coach is, I think,
15%.
around, I was gonna say 15%. So you can go down, and then middle school is a little bit less. Right now, there's a cap of there is a cap of
30%.
someone can't
Total
make
stipend.
more than a 30% stipend. So if you're the head football coach, assistant basketball coach, and the head track coach, you're not gonna be able to make more than a 30% stipend, which
Oh, so you get
prevents
those
you.
percentage for each thing. So if you're the
Yes,
football
ma'am.
coach, the basketball coach, you get 20, 15.
But it's capped at 30.
Okay,
But it's capped at 30. So that
Okay.
would prevent you from, you know, the concern about making more than an assistant principal or a principal. That's put there.
It'd probably be ill-advised too from a time management perspective as well.
Yeah, slightly.
Stay married, you probably.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Steve, I want to commend you on putting this together. I think this is fantastic. You know, I wasn't a great athlete, but good enough to play D3, and you know, sports are I look back on my time and growing up, some of the biggest, most impactful stuff in my life, helping me develop as a young man, was through my coach. And Pedro Kozak, you know, rest in peace. He was a famous soccer player in Chattanooga. But he was integral to shaping me as a young man, and I know that's what these coaches do day in and day out.
There are many kids, y'all, that if it wasn't for sports or band and some of these extracurricular things, they wouldn't be in school. They just wouldn't be. Coach Mariakis is putting together some data for me that he's collecting, grade-wise, attendance-wise, for kids that are in extracurricular activities as opposed to kids who are not. So I may have that in the November meeting. Coach Mariakis is putting that together. That stat will just be from Signal Mountain, but it's probably going to be pretty accurate in every school.
Awesome. Joe, do you have a question, sir?
Do you, Justin, Dr. Robinson, you probably don't, but a percentage of the number of our 45,000 students, how many of that 45,000 participate in some type of athletic?
We can try to find it. Obviously, you're limiting it to 6 through 12, right? Because most K through 5 are playing rec, so you're really talking about 22,000 kids. And we might be able to pull some numbers. We've got
Include the
Empower
band
School.
and that in with
Yeah.
those though, too, because
Right.
that's really.
The percent
Yeah,
out of
I will say, like, we have pressed on this from a strategic stand. Like, when we talk about every student belongs, the connection piece is like, this is what we are pushing. We're pushing for schools, not just from an athletic standpoint, not just from a fine arts standpoint, but even after-school clubs, right? I
It
mean,
includes like forensic club.
right, right.
Chess clubs,
and
things like that.
I mean, maybe Ryan and Star could speak to it better than I could, but I just think that from a participation standpoint, like, being connected to something in high school, regardless of what it is essential to the experience you're
Well,
going
it
to
gives you
have.
identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary, you said the band directors get extra money?
Yes.
They do? Okay.
I'd like to know that number, but I don't think y'all include band, and here's why. Because you're just talking about athletics here, we're not.
I am.
Yeah. So I would just like to know
Yeah, we
from
can
an
find-
athletic standpoint,
We
the
can find
number
it.
of kids that participate in some type of sport, whatever it is. I bet that number's high. I bet the Saudi days are right, it's 40%.
Cause that's Saudi Davis town, they probably do nightlife, they should be on
We
the.
probably got more people in the band at Saudi Days than the football.
Well,
team.
that's true too, but I'm just, again, athletic.
I mean, I'm just saying,
There's a band concert Saturday.
Friday night stuff.
At Slotty Daisy.
What? I missed that. What?
There's a band concert, or
Competition.
competition Saturday at Slotty Daisy High.
Yeah, we also play East Hamilton, which may not look good.
And Udoa High girls are the district champions for soccer.
Congrats. Steve, I appreciate it. I think it's great work, and I think it's something we obviously need to look into going into next year. I mean, at the very least, Tim does so much. I mean, getting him up to a director level to me seems like as an easy reach.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Future things we're going to discuss. Right now, we're on a percentage paying coaches. We're looking at that versus a flat rate. Also looking for maybe an assistant to Coach James. I mean, he carries a lot of
Who is
stuff.
Coach James?
He is the
Athletic coordinator.
athletic coordinator.
Oh, the gentleman that you.
Do you know how close he is to retirement?
Don't say it.
Gotta be close, right?
He's what, 62?
Can't say that out loud.
Okay, he's 45.
Can't say that either.
I mean, he could. I mean, we want to keep him. Tim
Sure.
was the first full-time. I still call, even though he's coordinator, call him athletic director. He's the first full-time,
I thought y'all called him.
first full-time athletic
doesn't get
director
paid like a
in the
director.
history of Hamilton County Schools. So he does a great job, and we're lucky to have him.
Do you know who brought that role in? Who the superintendent was?
So, yes. Me.
You?
Yeah. Before it was split, we had a split job between that and someone handled athletics and the disciplinary hearing authority, which, I mean, there's no way you can do both of those jobs and do either one of them well. And
I don't
so
see how Coach James does what he does. It's terrible.
he's fine. So the FY23, I think, was the first year that we split it and made a full-time athletic director.
It's wonderful. All right, last thing, Felice.
Okay, just a few points. First of all, I'm very happy to see what you want to prioritize in writing in here. The increased compensation, step increases, and updated compensation scale. You know, that's so needed, and, you know, we want to take care of the people in our schools and all who work with our students, and Steve did a great job. You know, we need to take care of our coaches who work directly with students as well. and take care of the director. I think there's a stark, one of them, but I'll just point out some stuff. We've got to look for places to cut. We're adding millions here and, millions in other areas, compensation and these prioritized, but I feel like we have some areas that I'll just say, in the school buildings, we have a lot of social workers, student support coaches, and all people who can help with outside resources and guide them. We've got community superintendents who can help with family situations, and help with resources. But we have a very large amount of people at central office who seem to duplicate some of that function, with helping families, with the resources and all. And I'd say there's plus the, it looks like an increased role for one, in that role without naming. But another support and seat, I feel like we added 2 years ago, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, student support coaches, counselors, to every single school building. And it seems we have a very large staff of those supports and all at central office. And I just feel like there's a lot of duplication of efforts, or we can streamline some of these functions to the schools more, or maybe through the community superintendents.
Can you give me an example of police, because you.
Okay, I know I'm speaking vaguely because I don't like to just.
Yeah, and I like to know what you're talking about, so I can understand and not misinterpret, so that's what I want to know, if you can share.
Well, family and community engagement, we're spending with salary and benefits to like close to $1 million. And I believe some of those functions could be duplicating, some of the other, but I don't know. I plan to actually visit,
I can help you out a little bit, because I kind of work with that department.
Okay, well,
with
I'm just trying to, without pointing out, I'm just saying streamline. I'm not saying slash, get rid of, but ways that, through attrition or something that we can move to streamline.
Okay, I know you had said about different people having resources, the various resources, and what I do on my other job is to try to help provide outside resources. But the area superintendents, the social workers, they actually get the resource information because the family engagement builds those partnerships to those people. That's why they know it. So just something for you to consider. It's not that they just automatically know it. Sometimes they're building those relationships and passing it through the school system as a whole. But I'm not trying to suggest whatever.
Okay.
I do suggest.
And I know the county has offices that do
I
the
guess
same
you
thing.
just go and find out for yourself. But I was just going
I
to
plan
tell you that.
to, and I didn't want to, call out the names, but I'm just saying we need to look at ways to streamline. We're looking at our priorities, which I think are wonderful. But, at the same time, we need to find areas to streamline through attrition or retirement or whatever, because there looks to me like a lot of duplication of efforts, in some areas.
Attrition.
That's all I'll say.
Going back to about last year in the budget, I mean, we took a super hard look at central office and centralized supports that aren't going to schools, and we cut over $5 million from those positions. I've committed, and I've talked to Mr. Doherty about this as we go throughout the year. We are doing that as positions become available. We're holding on some. No position gets reposted without Dr. Brown approving it, and so we're having those conversations as we go. I want to remind the board, so 1% pay increase is roughly about $4.5 million, right? Just to set the stage, we are not going to cut our way from central office to get to the wage increases that we want, right? It's going to take looking at return on investment of programs. It's going to take looking at the entire organization as a whole, right? The results that Dr. Brown is showing about recruitment and retention, when Mr. Smith came on board, we never would have been close to those numbers. And it's because we've invested in HR to recruit better, to support better once we get teachers. We're going to take a hard look. I can promise you that. And we're going to be, as we've been, super transparent about it. And our goals are the same, right? We want to increase wages. We want to look at the salary schedule and want to look at, is it the right one? Do we want to move to the new one? And we're committed to doing that. But I don't want to start off by going back to saying that, you know, central office is overstaffed, right? I mean, last year we talked about, you know, most organizations are somewhere between 8 and 12%. We were at 8%. Now we're even lower than that. And so we're committed to doing it the right way. What we ask for is partnership with the board as we have these conversations is let's set what that goal is, and let's set it early so that we've got plenty of time to work towards it. And, you know, hopefully we get to May and we've got an 11-0 vote on an approved budget.
Yeah, it's great perspective, Justin. And Felice, I mean, I appreciate your perspective because, I mean, what you're describing in terms of streamlining, I mean, whether you're Google or Facebook or Hamilton County schools, I mean, these are conversations you should be having in terms of, hey, are we getting the return on investment here? I mean, E&L is a great example. You know, we had a lot of lower enrollment for that, and, you know, so do we need to reallocate how we look at that specific bucket of funding, and how do you, I mean, so that, you know, it's healthy conversations, and is what we budgeted, is that working? Are we getting the return on it that we think so? I mean, so organizationally, I think it's a healthy conversation to have, and I think to your point, there's a right way to have it collaboratively, and I think that's why we're trying to have these conversations earlier. Like, what are our priorities? What are the gaps we're seeing? How do we bridge them? How do we have the conversation so that, to your point, at the end of the year, it's 11-0 vote because we were all on the same page, rowing in the same direction. So, Felice, I appreciate your perspective. Jackie, you had a question?
I do, Dr. Brown. So the compensation study, will we be able to see what that looks like in real time for, like, what would that look like for teachers increase? What would that look like for directors? What would that look like for area superintendent? What would that increase that they would get, what would that look like? Will we be able to know that for budgetary reasons?
I believe Mary Ellen's working with some numbers. I mean, definitely we have the skeleton, so it's all about, I think that she's working numbers where she can set it up and then actually move percentages and get a better idea. It's just, I think that's what the work is now, is trying to get it to a place so we can share that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Gary?
You said the 1.5 is 4.5 million. Remind me what it was for the step increase also. What was
It's
that?
about the same.
4.6.
1% is somewhere around 4.5, and I would say step is about the same.
Okay. So 1%, not 1.5%.
Yes, sir, 1%.
All right, go ahead, Joe.
I would just hope that, this won't be real popular with what I'm about to say probably, but if we're talking about moving monies around and being good stewards and making cuts, and I hope we also talk a little bit about funding and about revenue. You know, it seems to be a bad word with some folks. So I hope that becomes part of the discussion.
Yeah. I think it's a good point of, like, when you forecast out 5 years, I think this year, like, we can figure it out, like, to where we can get to a place of where hopefully everybody's comfortable with the wage increase. I don't think that we can, like, we're going to get to a point where if revenue stays here, costs keep going up, that it's going to be increasingly hard to improve wages without talking about revenue. So I appreciate you saying that.
I mean, I think by and large, the state at least has been, in terms of increasing, that's been good. It's been good to see. Now, obviously, I can't do it all, but I mean, that's why we had more conservative. What's the word I'm looking for?
Projection revenues.
Yeah, you know, so trying to be more proactive and being more conservative in hopes that revenues come in higher. I mean, but it's an unknown. Last thing, Mary Ellen and I were talking about this. I know I'm kind of a one-string guitar, but health insurance, we're going to be talking about it again. Just not a lot, but just an update on how we're trending overall. When you guys look at our overall budgets outside of our administrative personnel, it's one of our single largest line items of expenditure. 76 million, I believe, something to that effect. It's a lot of money, and it does present the greatest risk because we just don't know what's going to come down the pipeline in terms of medical problems. So I want us to continue to have a conversation about it, to focus on it, so that we are not surprised later down the road if something is not in line. So just FYI, I want to be on the record about that because that is something that keeps me up at night. But thank everybody for coming. Dr. Roberts, thank you for your team coming and doing a great job and having what I feel is a good collaborative discussion about how we can continue to move this county forward and pay our teachers what they deserve and give the kids the education they need. Thank you all.